Let me start recording. And let me start sharing. Okay, so this will be the last sort of advertisement course lecture for this course. So this is the last lecture where I will advertise things, and from next week onwards we will start to the business of proving or getting towards proving some of the theorems we have seen so far. Okay, so recall that I have shown you so far three classes of objects which are equinumerous. So far, three objects, three classes of objects enumerated by this famous sequence AN. First is alternating sign matrices, then there's descending plane partitions, and the last one is TSS CPPs, totally symmetric self-complementary. So today I want to enumerate one more, give you one more class of objects discovered recently, which is also enumerated by the same sequence. So let me define what these objects are. So an alternating sign triangle or AST of order n is a triangular array Aij for I between 1 and n, and j this time between I minus n and n minus I. So then the length of each row is actually going to be odd, and you'll see an example in a minute. So with entries in 0 plus minus 1, so the following three conditions are satisfied. So the conditions are similar to that of alternating sign matrices. All row sums are 1. So here you of course lose the symmetry between rows and columns, like SMs. Non-zero entries alternate in each row and column, just like ASMs again. But the third one is slightly different. So the topmost non-zero entry in each column is 1 if it exists. So another way of saying this third condition is that column sums can only be 0 or 1. So maybe I'll write that also. Equivalently, column sums. No, it's not equivalent. Okay, sorry. Yeah, it's better to write this. Okay, so let's do the first non-trivial case again. So let's take, so n equals 2 is kind of trivial. But, okay. Oops. Maybe it's worth doing n equals 2 just so that you see the nature of the array. So there are two rows. The first row has 3 entries because it goes from okay, maybe I made a mistake here. So n is 2, so this will be, no, it's correct. So it will go from -1 to 1. So the first row will have 3 entries. So here, let me just draw. Zeros are. So 1, 0, 0, and 1, and 0, 0, 1, and 1. So they are sort of unlike the triangle that we Dave Robbins constructed to enumerate the ASMs. They sort of. Hello. Call me again. Keep my phone ready. Okay, so unlike the other ASMs, these are justified properly. So remember, for the ASM, we had things like 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, like that. So they were not justified properly, in the sense properly meaning any entry in the next row fell between two entries in the previous row. Yes, as predicted. Just a second, they are calling me too many times, excuse me. Oh, okay, so it just turns out to be an Amazon delivery. Yeah, okay, so I'll cancel it. Okay. All right, so is that clear? So n equals 2, these are the only possibilities because uh, both row sums have to be 1, so this is forced. I mean, the bottom entry is forced. In this row, you have to have row sum 1, so you have to have at least 1, 1. That 1 cannot be here because that fails the alternating condition. So it has to be here or here. And you cannot have something like 1 minus 1, 1 because then that fails the third condition. So let's see the next case of n equals 3. So this one is kind of easy once you see the structures. Okay, so now you have the first row of length 5 and the second of length 3 and the third of length 1. So this is the base case, if you like. With the same first row, you can also have the second row being like so. Now if I and with the one in the top left, these are the only two possibilities. So now if I try to move the one over there, then I cannot have a 1 here, and this one is always forced, so this has to be this. Then, and this is the only one with the 1 here, so the next thing is to put the 1 in the middle, and then it turns out that the only possibility is this, and now the others are all left-right symmetry of the other fellows. So 1, 0, 0, 1. And 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. So here the number is 2. Yes. If you have been following the theme, you can see what's going to happen. This is also 7. So you see these look suspiciously like ASMs. This one sort of looks like the identity matrix. This one looks like the the skew identity, if you like, and there are all these things which look kind of similar. And this looks like the single non-trivial ASM. And you can see also that the number of entries is n squared. So there it was n by n. Here it is 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus so on up to 2n minus 1, which is also n squared. And you might think that this, come on, I mean, this is this too many things right here. Oops, sorry. So this has to be in bijection with ASMs in some easy way, but it turns out that that's not the case, at least so far as we know. But this is theorem due to Behrend, Roger Behrend, Ilse Fischer, and myself. It was published this year, but last year, but the preprint has been up for a while. So the number of ASTs of order n is equal to, again. So to summarize, we have thus we have 4 objects, and there is absolutely no bijection between any of these, any pair of these. This is considered a wide open and difficult problem, and not for lack of trying. I mean, people have tried to give bijections, but so far they have all failed spectacularly. So you might be tempted to think that all this is one gigantic coincidence, and there is no, I mean, there's just nothing more to say. To tell you that that is not the case, to show you that that's not the case, there are many examples, but I will show you one striking example. From the recent times. Okay, so let ASM of n be the set of ASMs of size n, and dpp of n be the set of dpps of order n. Okay, so now I'm going to give you 4 statistics. So, and I will use my usual operator overloading to use the same symbol. So let A be an ASM of n, and D be a descending plane partition of order n. So I'll give 4 statistics. So the first one, nu of A is the following: sum over 1 less than equal to I less than I prime less than equal to n, 1 less than equal to j prime less than j less than equal to n of aij ai prime j prime. This is the inversion number of an ASM. So let me motivate that. So you know what inversions of a permutation are. So does anybody not know what the inversion number of a permutation is? So let's say aside. Oops. So for a permutation, sigma minus n, the inversion number is the number of pairs ij contained in n squared such that I is less than j and sigma I is greater than sigma j. Okay, so it's out of order terms. So minus 1 to the number of inversions is precisely the sign of a permutation. So the sign is equal to minus 1 to the inversion. Sign of sigma. Okay. Okay. So okay, this is fine from a permutation. So how do you see it in the permutation matrix? So from the permutation matrix point of view, from the what is it doing? So if I write sigma as a matrix, so remember it's a 0, 1 matrix. So here this is I. So remember, let me call it M sigma. Oh God, just a second. Yes. So M sigma is the matrix. So remember, M sigma ij is 1 if and only if sigma. So here is 1, otherwise it's a 0. So this is in the ith row and jth column. And so what does it mean? So I less than j, okay, so maybe this unfortunate choice of terminology. Maybe I'll call it something else. K. So I want I less than j, so remember I'm in matrix notation, and let me call let me say the so I is less than j and sigma I is greater than sigma j. What am I doing? Yes, sigma I is greater than sigma j. So if I call L the column entry, so this should be here, right? So from the matrix point of view, you get an inversion every time you have a pair like this. You have a 1 somewhere, and to its top right, you have another one. So in other words, for every one, I look to the quadrant to the, so here is this one. I'm going to look in the top right and I'm going to count the number of ones. That will give me the values which are giving an inversion with this particular one. And then I take this one and I do the same, and I take all of the ones and I do the same. And you can easily check that the identity matrix will have 0 inversions because there is no such pair. So then, so equivalently, so how do you say, so this count inv of n sigma is the sum 1 less than equal to I less than j less than equal to n, 1 less than equal to, oh god, I should have done k, no, j. L less than k less than equal to n, m sigma ik, m sigma jl. And you see,
Sir.
yes,
Hello.
question?
Sir, could you share your screen again? It's
Oh,
lagging a bit.
oh, how did that happen? Okay, sorry, let me share it. Oh, I'm sorry. So, how long has it been unshared?
No, it has
It is shared. It was just freezing a bit.
maybe it's a infrared issue.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. So now you can see? Can you guys see?
I can.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I can.
Yeah. So so this inversion for a permutation from the matrix point of view can be written this way. So this is a product now, and this will only give a 1. This will give a 1 if and only if both of these entries are 1. So, so the analog of this is the exact same formula. It's just written for an ASM now. So now what complicates life is that one could be a 1, one could be a -1, or both could be a -1, and that will change things a little. Okay, so this is the definition of an inversion number for ASM. So let me box this whole thing. Okay, so that is to tell you that there is a this doesn't is not part of the matrix. Okay, so this is the inversion number. So that's nu of A. And now let me define nu of D. As I said, I am operator overloading. I will use the same symbol for different. I mean, it will be clear from the context. So nu of D for a descending plane partition is the number of parts for which, Dij is greater than j minus I. So the column index, I mean, so it just has to satisfy this inequality. So I'm not trying to give you any intuition for all of this because as I said, we are still in the advertisement stage. So this is one statistic. Now let me describe the second statistic. So remember, this column corresponds to A in ASMN, and this column corresponds to D in DPP. Okay, so now mu of A is simply the number of -1s in A. So this is 0 for any permutation, and it can go higher. By the way, can anyone give me a guess for how big can mu of A be for an n by n matrix ASM? Any guesses?
About half of n-2 square.
Half of?
Oh, actually, never mind. I was confused.
No, what's the order? Okay, let me just ask. What's the order? Can you have at most n? Is it linear? Maximum number of minus ones? Okay, think about it. I'll answer that in a second. Mu of D will be again the number of parts for which the opposite inequality holds. Dij is less than or equal to j minus n. So here this was Dij greater than j minus n, is less than or equal to. The third is rho 1 of A. So remember that in an ASM there is at most 1 1 in the top row, and basically this is the position of the 1 in the first row minus, okay, and I'll define rho 1 of D as simply the number of n's in D. So you remember n can be the largest part in a descending plane partition of order n is n, and how many times n occurs is counted by rho 1. And lastly, rho 2 of A. So this is for the first row. I do the same thing for the last row, but I count from the right. So this will be position, rather n plus 1 minus the position of the 1 in the last. And rho 2 of D, this is now going to get more and more complicated. So this is the number of n minus 1s in D plus the number of rows of D of length n minus 1. Okay, so then this is the theorem, again recent theorem, not too old, Berend, Di Francesco, and Zinusna from 2016, some advances. The sum over A in ASM sub n of x to the nu of A, y to the mu of A, z1 to the rho 1 of A, z2 to the rho 2 of A is equal to the sum over d in dpp of n, x to the nu of D, y to the mu of D, z1 to the rho 1 of D, z2 to the rho 2 of D. So the point is simply that, you know, all these four statistics are jointly equal. So I mean, this is a highly non-trivial fact. I mean, none of these things seem to be related in any simple way. So, for example, what this says is that the statistic rho 1 is equidistributed in A as rho 1 in D. But you can see from our symmetries of the ASM that rho 2 is also in A is also equidistributed with rho 1. But if I take the joint statistics, both if I take simultaneously rho 1 and rho 2, then you know, what do I do over here? I mean, here there is an obvious symmetry, but here what do I do? I mean, there's only one n. I mean, I don't have the analog of that, right? So what this is saying is that there are more and more statistics which are equal. So, you know, this gives hope to find a bijection which respects all these four statistics simultaneously. The more such identities you have, the more confidence you have that, you know, there is something deeper going on underneath. Okay? I mean, and you can, so special cases of these were already proved earlier. So if I set Z1 and Z2 to 1, then I don't care about these things, these rho 1 and rho 2 statistics. And then some were known. I think both this double statistic was known. Okay, I mean the conjectures for the new statistic and mu statistic were, I think, already due to Mills-Robinson norms. Okay, any questions? Okay. Okay, so right. So now I want to show you another theorem which is going to be, which we will prove, and is going to be show you more connections to other objects. And this is what is called two enumeration. So here's the definition, or not definition. Let me just so for an ASM of size n, let W2 of A be equal to 2 to the power of number of minus ones in A, which we have called mu of A. Right? So mu of A is the number of minus ones in A. Okay, so I'm going to raise, so each permutation matrix counts once, a matrix with one ASM, 1 minus 1 is going to count twice, and so on. By the way, did anybody think about this? What's the maximum value of mu of A? Any guesses? So, so you can have a structure like this. So let me take n large enough. So the first row is zeros, ones, and zeros. And then I can have 1 minus 1, 1. And then I can have 1 minus 1, 1 minus 1, 1, and etc. And then I'll go halfway, which will almost reach me at the end. Minus 1, 1. And then I'll go back down. So 1 minus 1, 1, 1. Like that. So it will have this kind of diamond shaped structure. So there'll be roughly n squared, order n squared, many minus ones. That's the maximum possible. Okay. Okay.
Is that just an example, or can you prove that that's like a maximal value?
Yeah. So if you take n odd, then you can see it. So the non-trivial, the sole non-trivial ASM of size 3 is that special case. So if n is odd, for example, let me just show you the next case. So n5. So you have 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1 minus 1, 1, 0, 0, 1 minus 1, 1 minus 1, 1, 0, 1. Right? So this is an ASM. For n even you miss out slightly, but still you get of order n squared. Right? So you have here 4. So n minus 1 squared exactly. Anyway, okay. Okay. So let us enumerate this in Sage. So okay, so let me do so a matrices of, let's say, 3 and a equals a dot, let's say, random element. So a is this. Oh, okay, good. Now what can I do? So I think can I count the number of minus ones? Here. So a dot. Oh, I think I did this last. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 to the power of that. So that gives me 2. And now what I'm going to do further is count. Let me do list A. So there's zeros, there's 0, 0, 0 minus 1s and then 1 and then this. Okay, so let me now show you the sum. Okay, that's 8. So let me now, instead of okay, so let me do this. So it's the same as before. Now I'm going to build a list. So for n in range, let's say I don't want to go too high. No, first. So let's start with 1. 0 is good. Let me see if I can. So do you see a pattern?
Triangular numbers? Something? 3, 6.
8 is not a triangular number.
No, but 2 power that. I mean, 2 power triangle.
That's right. That's right. Yes. So amazingly, you always get to the triangular number. So this is a. I don't know whom to ascribe it to. I think this is already. Quite old. So A in ASM of n, W2 of A is exactly 2 to the n into n plus 1. So you see, for n equals 1, you get 2 to the 1, then 2 to the 0, 2 to the 1, 2 to the 3, 2 to the 6, 2 to the 10, and you might be able to go to the next. Yeah, 2 to the 15. So, okay, but more is true. So it gets really, okay, so let me, right, okay, so now let me fiddle with this program. So what do I want? So I will look at ASMs of size 3, but I will only check if the 1 at, oh sorry, so because Sage index is starting with 0, so I'm looking now at these ASM. I'm doing the 2 enumeration of ASMs. I'm doing the analog of the refined ASM enumeration for 2 n. Okay, so let's look at this. So if A00 is 1, this might complain. Yeah. So I have to do, I think, this way. No. So I cannot do subscripts. Okay, so what I have to do. So this is the problem with the types. One of the problem with types. So the problem is that I cannot do A of 0 because A is an alternating sign matrix. So as I told you earlier, so type of A is an alternating sign matrix. So it does not think of it as a matrix. But what you can do is something called coercion. And this is there in the documentation. So what you can do is you can convert it to a matrix. You can make it a matrix. As far as you see, there is no difference. But now this is a matrix. and if I do type of that, I'll get a matrix of integer entries. So it will treat this so this will treat it as an element of matrix of z. I mean with integer coefficients. Okay, so that done. Okay. So now if I do a dot 2 matrix and I now do 0 0, will it complain? No. Okay. So remember a was the special matrix. This one, the middle one. Okay. So what I should have done is a dot 2 matrix. And I think this will also work. Yeah. So it gives me 1 1 for size 3. So I'm looking at this guy. So there are two matrices with a 1 in the top left entry. These are these two, and both have 0 minus 1. So they contribute 2 to the 0, which is 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sum up. Is it clear? Please ask if there are any questions. So I will, oh, I forgot to say that I have shared the previous program, and I will share this. Okay, so now this is this is for this, and now I'm going to look at the ith column. So now I'm going to take a range for I in range n, range 3. So by default, this will do the right thing, because the range command, so okay, so maybe I should show that. So range of 3 is, if I take the list of that, I'll get exactly 0 1 2. So range of 3 works because it will start at 0 and it will end at the one lower than the maximum. So range of 3 6 is 3 4 5, like that. So it does the right thing. I mean, mentally you might be thinking of 1 2 3, but what Sage or Python does is do 0 1 2, but it works perfectly because the indices are also matched up in the right way. Okay, so this is 2 4 2 because this gives you, these two give you together give you 2. This gives you 1 plus 2 plus 1, that's 4, and these two give you 2, 1 plus 1, which is 2. Okay. Okay, so now let me make a table. So now let me change this to n, and I'll also change that to n. And now for n in range, how many did I managed to go up to 7? I should be able to do that. So this star means it's complete. Now let us stare at this data. Do you see a pattern? So it's 1 1 2 4 2 8 24 24 8 64 256 384 256 64. Anybody?
4 times 5, I mean in order, I mean times 8, 2 times 2, 8 times 3, 64 times 4, 1024 times 5.
Yes, this one, right? The second, you're talking about the second
Yes.
entry? Very good, that's correct. But can you predict the whole row? So you see, this row, each entry in this row is divisible by 8. So if you divide by 8, you get 1 3 3 1.
Oh, right, it's a binomial, is it?
Yeah, it's exactly the Pascal's triangle multiplied by the power 2. So the 60, each entry here is divisible by 64, and if you divide by 64, you will get 1 4 6 4 1, and like that 1 5 10 10 5 1. Okay, so maybe I'll write it here. So this is A and B. The sum over A in ASM of n. A1j is 1. W2 of A is 2 to the, now n choose 2, you go one level lower. So this 8, of course, this 8 is clear. I mean, the first row and the first column and the last column are clear, because if you have 1 here, then you're basically looking at ASMs of size 1 lower. So you multiply, so you'll have n into n minus 1 by 2 times n choose j minus 1, because I'll have, or is it n minus 1? So 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, n minus 1 choose j. And B implies A, because if I sum over j, I'll get 2 to the n minus 1, and when I add that, I'll get n into n plus 1 by 2. What am I doing? Just a second. So, yeah, so j will go from 0 to n. Just a second. So, no, so I'm making some index mistake. So, this is 1331 for n equals 4. That is correct. So, and the sum, so 3 means I have right, so wait just a second. So when n is 3, I'll have 2 to the 3 times 4 by 2, which is 2 to the 6, which is 64. So that's the form. So this is actually n minus 1, and this is n minus 1 and n minus 2. Okay. So if people who are studying alternating sign matrices knew about this 2 enumeration first, they would have found a much easier triangle to guess. Maybe not to prove yet, but to guess. And we will see that these guys are related to another class of objects. Okay, any questions? Okay, so now I want to motivate the discovery of ASMs, or not motivate. In the rest of the class, I want to describe how ASMs were discovered. As I said already, in the physics literature, they were kind of implicit in the 6-vertex business, but nobody really cared for their enumeration, and because they were coming from a completely different angle. So, so what? Before I describe how ASMs appear, I want to tell you about a theorem that should be widely known but isn't, unfortunately, called the name will appear soon. So this Dodson condensation is related to an important theorem in linear algebra. So let M be an n by n matrix. And for S and T, two subsets of box n, which I remind you is the notation for 1 to n. Let M superscript S subscript T be the matrix obtained by removing the rows in S and columns in T from M. Okay, and if S equals I, T equals J. So in our applications, S and T will be of the same cardinality. Then we write in Ij instead of M bracket I, braces I. Okay. So here is an important theorem called the Denano silent Jacobi identity. So determinant of n, det m, times det of m 1n 1n. So this is the matrix obtained by removing the first row, last row, first column, last column, equals determinant of m11, determinant of mnn, minus, you can guess what's going to come, m1n, determinant of mn, where determinant of the empty matrix is taken to be 1. So you can immediately see this. So determinant of A, B, C, D, the 2 by 2 matrix, times, when I consider this is 1. This is the empty matrix because I'll remove the first row, last row, first column, last column. This is equal to the matrix, the determinant of the 1 by 1 matrix obtained by deleting the first row and first column. So that's D. Last row, last column. So A minus first row, last column. C. Last row, first column. And this you know. Okay. So let us prove this. So this was verified by Denano for n up to 6 in 1819, and Jacobi proved the general identity. In fact, he proved something much more general in 1833. So somehow this okay, so I'll say more about this. Okay, so let's to prove this, I recall what the cofactor of a matrix is. So, or the pro-cofactor matrix. So to prove this, so recall cofactor matrix. MC, whose ijth entry is minus 1 to the I plus j times determinant of mji. You have to do the transpose, right? So, okay, so then if I multiply, if I take the ith entry of so then m dot mc ii, oops, sorry. This is sum k equals 1 to m I k mc k I, and this will be exactly determinant of m. Guess maybe I'll write it carefully. So minus 1 to the I plus 1. mi1 determinant mi1 minus, what is my notation? Maybe I'll write n is mij, small mij, to avoid unnecessary capital letters. mi1 minus mi2 determinant mi2, etc. Minus 1 plus minus 1 to the n minus 1 min determinant min, and this is just the determinant of m by the Laplace expansion. Whereas I take for j not equal to I, m dot mc of ij. Okay, I again go through the same rigmarole and I get minus 1 to the this time j plus 1 mj1 determinant mi1 minus mj2 determinant of m i2 plus etc. plus minus 1 to the n minus 1 mjn determinant mjn. And this is 0 because this is the determinant of the matrix. The determinant of a matrix with row I replaced by row j. So you have two copies of row j, and so it's going to be 0. Okay. So what this says, that m dot mc is a diagonal matrix with determinant m on the diagonal. So it's basically determinant m times the identity. Right? That's what we've shown. Okay. So therefore, by properties of the determinant that you already know, so determinant of this guy m dot mc is determinant of m times determinant of mc, and that is equal to determinant m to the n, right? And so determinant of mc is determinant m to the n minus 1, and before you object that determinant could be 0, this I will consider in the ring in the polynomial ring where these objects m11, m12, etc. are treated as formal variables. Okay, so it's the multivariate polynomial. Okay, so it's an object living inside that. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, to prove the Denon-Jacobi identity, so now we have all the ingredients. So, I mean, all this you kind of knew already, but it's good to recap. So, define the matrix M star from MC by replacing MCIJ by delta ij for 2 less than equal to j less than equal to. So i.e., so if you want how it looks like, So the first entry is of course determinant M11. The second entry is minus determinant of M1, 2, etc. minus 1 to the n minus 1. Oh, sorry, n plus 1. Oh, it doesn't. Determinant of M1 n. The first row after that will be, first row and last row after that will be 0. And then, or maybe I should do one more entry. So this is minus 1 to the n, determinant of M1. And the next row here will have a 1 and then all zeros. And the last row, last but one row will have all zeros and 1. And there'll be ones over here and 0. And so then I'll have minus sign, minus 1 to the n plus 1, determinant of n1, minus 1 to the n plus 2, determinant of n2, minus 1 is just a minus 1, so minus determinant of n minus 1 and determinant of n. Okay. Is it clear? So there's an identity block sitting over here and there's zeros over there, otherwise it's the same. So now,
Sir,
yes?
should J be strictly less than N then? In the definition.
Sorry,
J.
No. J or 2 n minus 1. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Right. Okay. So now let's determinant. I mean, this is kind of easy to compute because there's a big fat identity block sitting downstairs. So if I expand over here, then there are only 2 contributions. So I get determinant of M11, determinant of NN from these 2. So I only have to look at this 2 by 2 block containing the first and the last entries. And I have minus 1 to the n plus 1 in both sides, so that will cancel. And I have this extra minus n, so determinant M1n. Okay? But, so this is the brute force calculation, but now, using the same argument as before, determinant of m dot m star is what? Let me first compute m dot m star. Okay, I'll not go through all the details, but basically the idea is that I get in the first column, I still get determinant m. So the first column behaves like the determinant, this first column, and then similarly the last column behaves the same. So I have 0 all the way up to 0. But the remaining act just like the identity. So I have then M12, M1 and minus 1. Oh, sorry, that should be M. M22, M2, M2 and minus 1. And then 0, 0. Okay, whatever, you get the point. So then this is M. N2 up to n minus 1 and then a determinant. Okay. So, so what do I have? So determinant of m dot m star is of course determinant m times determinant m star. But what is determinant m star? This is, I get, right. So I get determinant m. Yeah, okay. So determinant m whole squared from here. And then what do I have left here? Okay, so maybe I should have written it. So m2 n minus 1. Oh, sorry, other way around. M n minus 1 2 to n minus 1 minus 1 3. This block over here is exactly okay, let me write it. So that determinant m is this. So determinant m squared times determinant of m 1n 1n. I've removed the first row, first column, last row, last row. Right? So now if you compare these two, you get the answer. So so determinant m star is that. Right. So sorry, I'm confusing myself. Determinant m times determinant m star. You should only have one factor of determinant. Oh no, sorry, this is not. Right, so this I give you directly here because this is m dot m star. So that determinant I'm taking here. So I can essentially cancel off one factor. So I get determinant m star equals determinant m times this, which is the same as determinant m star, which is this. So you compare both and you get the answer. Okay, is that clear? Sorry, I confused myself a little bit. Are there any questions about this? Okay, very good. So, so why is this called Dodson condensation? So Reverend C.L. Dodson in 1866 he published a paper, I think, in the Philosophical Transactions of the London Math Society. So he realized that this can be used as an algorithm for computing determinants. By the way, do I have to say who Reverend C.L. Dodson is, or does anybody know? Anybody not know, rather? So of course this is Lewis Carroll, who wrote, among other things, Alice in Wonderland. He was a polymath actually. He knew many things anyway. Yeah. Okay. So let me give an example. So let's take this 531 minus 3 minus 1 1 and 1 3 minus 1. So then determinant A by, so what is the algorithm? So the algorithm is that determinant M can be written as i.e. determinant M11 determinant MNN minus determinant M1N determinant MN1 divided by determinant M1N. Right, so here we can calculate this. So upstairs I get 5 3 minus 3 minus 1 times minus 1, 1, 3, minus 1. So here I removed the last row, last column to get this determinant, and first row, first column to get this determinant, and I'll do the other way around. 3, 1, minus 1, 1 times minus 3, minus 1, 1, 3, and the whole divided by determinant of minus 1. So that's not absolute value, that's the determinant. So the first one will give me minus 5 plus 9, which is 4, times the second one will give me 1 minus 3, so that's minus 2. The term here will give me 3 plus 1, that's 4, and the last term will give me minus 9 plus 1, so that's minus 8, and I'll divide by minus 1. This is not absolute value. So this is minus 8 plus 32 by minus 1, which is minus 24. And you see what's going to happen in general. So I'm going to, so the key point about this algorithm is that we always evaluate 2 by 2 determinants. That's the only thing we are doing. Well, of course, 1 by 1 also sometimes, but mostly 2 by 2 determinants. So it's very efficient actually. So this is what I said about this should be known. I mean, this should be something that can be taught in a linear algebra course. I mean, you can see, you saw that the proof is not difficult. So somehow this comes up in algebraic geometry. So algebraic geometers know that there are no Jacobi identity, but somehow it is not part of the curriculum for whatever reason. Okay, so there are some points about this algorithm I would like you to observe. So first of all, I would like you to notice that there is a problem with this algorithm. Problem not in any mathematical sense, but in a computational sense. What is the problem?
It'll be exponential.
Sorry?
It'll be exponential, I guess, in the end.
No. It will, no. But you're not storing, right? I mean, this is very fast actually.
I mean, for a large n-cross-n matrix, then you're saying.
No. I'm not talking million by million. But you know, if you take your typical, so if you think of matrices which are used in the real world, I mean, those are sparse matrices. They are huge but sparse, and then that's a whole different kettle of fish. But I'm talking about.
What if
like,
it's a 0 in the middle?
That is the problem. Yes. Who said that? Yes, Anish. That's right. So the problem is that you could potentially have a 0 over here in the denominator. I mean, even if we are looking at integer entries, so yeah, you could have a situation. I mean, if this were a 0 in the middle, for example, I mean, that certainly does not prevent us calculating the determinant. The problem is that this guy could potentially be 0. So at the intermediate series. So problem is that we have the possibility of having a 0 in the denominator. And the larger, denominator, the larger the matrix gets, the more this is an issue in the intermediate stages. Because there are many more intermediate stages. But on the other hand, and this is the flip side of the same coin. You see that this algorithm should give you, even if you started with an integer matrix, it seems to potentially give you a rational number, right? Because you're taking denominators, and a priori you have no reason to expect a cancellation. And this generalizes in a natural way. Suppose I take an integer with polynomial entries, or as I said earlier, if we are looking at arbitrary mij's, so we are working in this ring, then you should expect something in the fraction field. But actually, we know that the determinant is going to be a polynomial. So what is going to happen is there are going to be amazing number of cancellations. So even if you take 4 by 4, you will get a non-trivial rational function from the 2 by 2 in the middle. But what is guaranteed, and we know this because we know other formulas for the determinant, is that you will always get a polynomial in the entries, right? So this is part of the same business. So this is so note. So I'll just write that. So note that a matrix with integer entries has an integer determinant. So there are non-trivial cancellations. I should have said. So this algorithm for calculating is called Dodson condensation. So the term condensation was used by Dodson himself. But the term Dodson condensation for this algorithm is more recent. I mean, it's popularized by Zellweger. Okay, right. So there are non-trivial cancellations in the condensation algorithm. So there is some magic going on from this point of view, and so people also work on this, and I'll tell you more about this soon. Okay. So the starting point for the invention or discovery of alternating sign matrices is Dodson condensation. So here is the definition. So one can try to there are many generalizations of the determinant. So one natural generalization is to tweak this parameter, this formula. So this is called the lambda determinant. So the lambda determinant of an n by n matrix is given by, so I'll write det underscore lambda for the lambda determinant. So this looks very similar to det lambda m11, det lambda mnn plus lambda det lambda m1n det lambda mn1 divided by det lambda of m1n. So where with det lambda of the empty matrix being 1 and det lambda. This is a recursion of order 2 because of this guy, so I have to tell you for 2 guys lower, det lambda of A being just A. So for the 1 by 1 matrix, I have to tell you what it is. So that's it. Okay. Right. So this is the lambda determinant. So lambda going to -1 gives the usual. Okay, and so for so det lambda of the 2 by 2 matrix ABCD is going to give you AD plus lambda BC. So lambda appears here and divided by 1, of course, because the empty matrix is determined, lambda determined. And for the 3 by 3 matrix, so let me just tell you what happens for the 3 by 3 matrix, and this will motivate. Obviously. So det lambda of, let's say, Aij 1 less than equal to ij less than equal to 3. So this is now a 3 by 3 matrix. Okay, now there are many terms, but it's surprisingly not as nasty as. Oh no, well, this is not so difficult, but actually I'm running out of time, so I don't want to do the whole calculation. But so you get A11822833 just like before, just like for the regular determinant, plus lambda, and just like this case over here, plus lambda A12, A21, A33, plus lambda A11, A23, A32. So these terms look familiar, but now something funny happens. There is a lambda squared plus lambda A12, A21, A23, A32 divided by A22 plus lambda squared A13, A21, A23. Oh, sorry, and there's something no. A13, A32 plus lambda squared A12, A23, A31 plus lambda cubed A13, A22, A31. Okay, so here this you can sort of see just by doing this same kind of computation over here. You compute this 2 by 2, this 2 by 2, this 2 by 2, and add a lambda and you do the algebra, and you can see that A22 is going to come in the denominator because that is the middle entry. Okay, and but so surprisingly, again, what happens in general, det lambda of Aij is a Laurent polynomial. It's not a rational function of lambda. I mean, it is. For any n. See, I mean, this is so. This kind of motivates this definition. So I remember I had said that there's this non-trivial cancellations in the condensation algorithm. So these cancellations continue. So you would expect, well, you have a lot of intuition about determinants, so you know what's going to happen. From this formula, you would not expect a priori, or what you would expect in general is that you would get a rational function, because this guy is also I mean, potentially large object, right, with denominators and so on. So, but again, there are miraculous cancellations, and you get what is called, you get a Laurent polynomial. That is, you get, so a Laurent polynomial is just like a regular polynomial, except that you have finitely many terms of negative degree, okay, in addition. So So this becomes almost like a polynomial, and so the theorem of Robbins and Ramsey from '86, the same two people who have appeared many times in our stories, is that if I take an arbitrary matrix A, so Aij, you can expand this determinant as a sum, lambda determinant as a sum over not over permutation matrices as is usual, but over alternating sign matrices. So A and n by n matrix. And what is it? So I have lambda to the nu of B and 1 plus lambda inverse to the mu of B. I'll remind you what these are in a second. And the product over ij going from 1 to n, aij to the bij, raised to the power bij. B is an ASM, so the power are only 0, 1 or minus 1. So 0 means it doesn't appear, 1 means it appears in the numerator, and otherwise it appears in the denominator. And so they found that they could give an explicit formula, so where mu of B was the number of inversions, which I defined earlier, P, and mu of B is the number of minus ones. P. And this is where the Laurent polynomial business comes in. So it's not divided by 1 plus lambda, it's 1 plus lambda inverse raised to some power. Okay, so this guy is, so this you can see now is a manifest Laurent polynomial, and this is an instance of what is called the Laurent phenomenon. So somehow in many different contexts, things that you would expect to be rational functions of some parameter turn out to be Laurent polynomials instead. And this is the subject of, so one class of important objects which satisfy the Laurent phenomenon are called cluster algebras. But I'm not going to get into it. But this is a very special case of a cluster algebra, and so when Robbins and Ramsey found this expansion, they said, okay, you know, this is so analogous to a permutation expansion of the determinant, the Leibniz expansion, that let's just see how many objects are there, how many elements are there here, and that's what started this whole story. And I should say, just to compare, this is, so the other 6 terms are exactly correspond to permutations. This is the non-trivial term, and you can see this corresponds to this 0, 1, 0, which I already wrote many times today. So these 4 entries give you positive powers, and this gives you a negative power. And how many inversions are there here? There's one inversion for this pair, and there's one inversion for this pair. There's no inversion for this pair, for this minus 1. So you get 2. So that gives you a lambda 2 and 1 plus lambda inverse raised to the number of minus 1s, which is 1. So this lambda squared plus lambda is really lambda squared times 1 plus lambda inverse. And another thing I wanted to say, so if lambda is minus 1, the only terms that contribute have b equal to 0, have mu b equal to 0. And therefore you get permutation matrices, and this expansion is actually the same expansion, the same Leibniz expansion, because you get AI sigma j, if you just think about it. Okay. So any questions about this? Okay, I'm going a little slow. I wanted to program the lambda determinant, but okay, so I guess that'll have to wait. If there are no questions, I'll stop recording.